Hey guys, Professor Bill here, Comic Book University. I just got finished reading Transformers Revolution. Now, this is not what you'd think upon first discovering this title. They're not having a revolution in and of themselves. In reality, revolution is one thing. Realistically, I think that the title is misappropriated. I think that it should actually be called something like Transformers the Combined Universe, because, yeah, basically Marvel Comics, and Marvel's going to come up a lot in this. Now, this is IDW. I want that to be pointed out. And more importantly, this is Hasbro. And you'll see that, but when push comes to shove, you're going to realize that Marvel is really all over top of this thing, even though they technically have nothing to do with it anymore. Now, Revolution is a new thing that's coming out with IDW, and it's basically an exemplification of what Hasbro is trying to do with their version of an expanded universe. This Revolution thing that IDW is doing is going to be a combination, their own version of the Marvel shared universe. It's going to involve the Transformers, it's going to involve G.I. Joe, and we've seen G.I. Joe versus Transformers, two really big ones before, and it resulted in Bumblebee becoming Goldbug. So there's that. This is also going to involve M.A.S.K. Remember M.A.S.K.? I mean, those guys, they changed with the cars and the helmets and everything. They were actually more interesting in theory than they were in actual application, but it was still pretty cool, and it's nostalgia like crazy. But we're also going to involve ROM the Spaceknight, one of the absolute stupidest toys ever made, and yet, here's a Marvel reference again, Marvel Comics had a 50-plus issue run with ROM the Spaceknight and made him not necessarily a household name, but at the time, absolutely. Gave him credibility, redesigned him in the comics, looked much better than the bulky thing that was used in the toys. And here on the cover of Transformers Revolution, you'll see a picture of ROM the Spaceknight. Tell me that doesn't look almost exactly like the Marvel Comics version. So, yeah, they're getting kind of close there with the license issue, but whatever. Transformers was also owned by Marvel, and I'm going to get more into that a little bit later, but this is also going to involve Micronaughts. Remember those guys? Yeah. If you do, it's because you read the Marvel comic Micronaughts. It's a funny thing how all these different companies are known far and wide and well because Marvel Comics got the license to do some of these comics, and then the license was revoked, whatever, and now they're trying to combine these and do something special with them. And then we've got Action Man. Action Man was never a Marvel comic character, and that's the reason why you've probably never heard of him. But yeah, for the most part, all of these characters were Marvel Comics, not properties, but licensed to Marvel to draw the comics, and they became famous that way. Transformers probably more than any of the others. That 4-issue miniseries, I don't know if you guys remember the last issue. So I believe that was issue number 80. It said issue 80, part 80 in a 4-issue limited series, which was... It kind of brought a tear to my young eye at the time because it was originally only supposed to be a 4-issue miniseries, but Hasbro loved what they were doing so much with the comic that they said, listen, Marvel, we want you to continue. Please continue making this. And most of these stories, guys, most of these stories that the Transformers are using today are still ideas that were started in the Marvel company. This is probably the biggest event that IDW has ever done. So if they can pull this off, and so far it looks like they are pulling it off, then uber kudos to them because it's looking good. So the story so far is that there's this ore 13 specifically, that's been discovered, and it's a pretty important thing to the Dire Wraiths. Now, these are basically organic Transformers, which Thundercracker later on, who's the main character in this, the main Transformer in this story, gives reference to. So the Dire Wraiths are a shape-changing creature that also has magic. They actually have a form of magic, and the Space Knights, ROM specifically, is a space knight who his planet was destroyed a long time ago by these dire wraiths, and it's his mission in life to go and eliminate all of these dire wraiths, and he has to find them first. He's got a detector to detect them and all that stuff, and ROM's not actually even in this comic. This is a Transformers comic, and he's not crossing over yet. So the Autobots are under the leadership of Optimus Prime. They're going around and they're blowing up these deposits of Ore-13. Good thing. There's no reason for the dire wraiths to be here anymore if they're gone. So doing a good thing. But as usual, Optimus isn't exactly getting the best press for what he's doing. It's just looking like he's causing destruction. And that is what the dire wraiths have always done. You know, back in the Marvel comics, that's actually what made them so cool, is that they would make it seem like, oh, he's killing normal people, but they're not normal people, they're dire wraiths. Yeah, Marissa Fairborn. She was in charge of the Earth Defense Command, and she was recently replaced by a guy who was killed practically within seconds. So I'm sure she's going to be back. Meanwhile, she's really just a bad mamma jamma. She's kicking some serious butt, and right now she's in there having a meeting with the president, and she gets a call, and there's been an attack someplace, and now certain White House security guards are actually dire wraiths, so they spring up and they start attacking and trying to kill the president. Well, Marissa is able to save the president and kick some serious butt, and she calls the one person who she knows she can trust, and that's Thundercracker. Now, Thundercracker is better than he's ever been. He is great in this. He's trying to be a screenwriter for movies because he loves watching movies. So in this comic, the entire comic, he's got some inner thought bubbles, and it's basically him thinking out, I guess, internally recording what his new screenplay is going to be about to try and sell it to Hollywood. So it's really like the best humor you're going to get in a lot of these Transformers comics, where he, aside from Megatron being beaten up and licked to a wakefulness by My Little Ponies. More on that later. So Thundercracker is the only real Transformer in here. There are a couple others. Some of the second generation Seekers are there, but they're more like mindless drones. They're copies, and they're just really like Transformer zombies. And Thundercracker's just blowing right through them practically, and then he's going through these dire wraiths and doing all sorts of crazy stunts to try and kill these guys. At a certain point in the comics, there's a really cool moment where Marissa yells at Thundercracker and says, "Watch out where you're aiming." Thundercracker replies with, "I'm a seeker. I always watch where I'm aiming." And that is a great line. It's a great pullback. And later on, he refers to the fact that he said that without thinking, that, yeah, I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not a silly little whatever. I'm a seeker. I'm not out journeying, trying to find anything. As a seeker, that's not trying to find a journey. That's knowing exactly where you're going and homing in. And it was a really great defining moment for Thundercracker to really flesh out one of these original first-generation characters. And yeah, honestly, good job on IDW's part on this, because really, really good job at bringing Thundercracker to the forefront of a story like I've never seen him before. So anyway, the comic ends with the president being safe-ish. The main big bad in this particular comic gets beaten up, and she actually gets impaled on the Washington Monument. Oh yeah. Yeah, yuck. So my grade for this comic, because I'm reading all of these Revolution comics, but this particular one was really good, and it was an okay way to jump on. They had the prelude part, the little text in the beginning to let you know what the story is so far. They did a great job of filling you in really quick. You're able to jump in this, and while at first you may be confused, just a couple of pages in, you're pretty much all caught up on the bulk of what you need to be caught up on. So, fantastic job. I'm giving this comic a B+. A B+ because good job at, you know the Transformers is the main property that you have right now, and they got several different lines of the Transformers starting or continuing or restarting because of this crossover event. So I'm happy to see that they're taking advantage and they know where their big money lies. So guys, this is Professor Bill, Comic Book University, class dismissed.